all these stuff. They have to work for what they want and all these stuff. No, I remember when I used to go and visit at the folk he was working. That was when I was young. As I said, it was when I got older, high school stage, where they really started to mistreat me the real way. Being a little child, I didn't have much knowledge of them mistreating me, other than now I can say they were doing it spiritually. So when he came from that, he stopped working at the Fowl Club. He came where my grandma was. My grandma was a nice lady. She dealt with me like a king. She grew me with manners. She grew me. She was a great lady. There's nothing bad I have to say about my grandmother. I love my grandmother, even though I know that she knew what took place and she wasn't aware of everything. And also I should say she was also unalived because she wanted to speak the truth about my situation. And also my sister Michelle was also unalived because she was about to unveil the truth to me, which I wasn't aware of until I started to unveil the truth about who I was and all these things. She came to me in the spirit and she made me know how she passed away and how they went down with it and all these things. She went through most of the things that I am currently undergoing. Yes. So, as I was saying, after he stopped working at the Fowl Club, he came and was staying where my grandma was. Now, I remember when I used to come from school in the evening, he would be sitting in the settee. At one point he wasn't living. No, that was after a while. He wasn't living where we were. But even when he was living where we were, we hardly communicated unless it was him who was asking something, because really and truly I was scared of him because of how he dealt with me with aggression. He used to speak to me very rough. If he was telling me to do something, say for instance he wanted me to throw out a cup of water, and I would throw, like, say for instance half cup, he would say, "What the fuck you not throw out 1 cup of water, give me half cup." It was like those way. He would get angry at me for simple things, you know, and he was cutting board when he stopped working at the Fowl Club. He used to visit when he used to work at the Fowl Club. When he used to visit, it was the same thing. When I come from school in the evenings, I would just say good evening to him and gone to my room. He would be there even the whole night, and I would say nothing more to him, because unless he said something to me, so we hardly spoke. I had no guidance from him as a father should be guiding his son. I didn't have any of the privilege. I was more so scared of him, which I think was also a part of their ritual for me to be scared of him. So I also remember times when he was cutting board and I would go to bush with him. He would deal with me in harsh manner if he was telling me to help him to rock over a piece of the log or anything. It was all filled with bad words behind whatever he was saying. So I was scared of him. And even his friends around him would say, you don't have to deal with him in such manner and way, because he's young and he just don't understand and way. Yeah, so he dealt with me very harsh. So it wasn't anything of a good past. No, as I said, when I came from school, I would just step past him and say good evening, and that was it, unless he said something to me. So there wasn't much communication with me and him. I didn't even know who my grandparents were, because remember, I thought that he was my father, so I didn't know who my grandparents were on his father's side. When he came on to his father's side of family, I didn't know his father's side of family other than his brother and two other brothers that they have, which are of different complexion. They are white folks. They are white skinned persons. Yes, so as I said, I didn't have any good memories. I don't have any good memories of me growing up as a child with him. I was more so scared of him, and even my siblings knew that I was scared of him. And it wasn't him alone, the other brother, it was because of how they were grown. They said by their parents, their father. So it was the same thing for siblings, folks who were my cousins. It was the same thing for them. They were scared of my uncle also. And I remember working with him at Bush, and he would give me little and nothing, because that was his situation when he was growing. Whatever he went through when he was young, I guess he wanted to put me through that as a child also, which is trauma. So he would give me little and nothing when I went to Bush with him. And it wasn't just me alone. Anybody he worked with, he would give them little and nothing and take the bigger slice of the bread. So after a while, I didn't really go to Bush with him. It was after my uncle, another uncle, whose name is John. He's a deportee. I don't even remember which country he was in, but to my knowing, he got dipped because he was beating on his wife, and his wife must have filed complaints about him and all these said it for himself. I used to take coke and all these things. He even told me that he was in prison over there and he stabbed men with book and all these things. When he came, he was staying where my grandma was, and it was the same thing with him, no good terms. We were always on bad terms. He came and they are just a family of ignorant persons. All of the brothers of them, they are ignorant. They are, I would like to say, nuts. They go off easily for simple things. If their kids should speak and be honest, they can attest to that they are very aggressive. All of the brothers of them, they are very aggressive. And he came back and it was the same thing with him. We were always in conflict, and at times we were cool, at times we were always in conflict and all these things. He was the one who was always offering to hit me, because I was also a person who was taking on that aggressive reaction towards people. I was very aggressive at one point. I was taking on from them because I grew up seeing them being very aggressive. So I was also aggressive, and I was aggressive particularly to him mostly, because he would always think that he could censor me, or I don't know what was it with him, but we always were in and out of arguments for little petty stuff, and I would tell him my mind without any fear or whatsoever. But all of them were aware of what was taking place, and they all did what they did to groom me a certain way. It was all a part of their plans. So after they unalived my grandmother, I got into conflict with the self-proclaimed father, because I was partying with a youth that was also a part of their clothing. But it was like what was being revealed to me is that that person was harvesting my energy, and he didn't want me to part with him because he was in the occult, and he knew that he was harvesting my energy, which means he wouldn't have the privilege to harvest my energy. So he was telling me to stop part with him and all these things. I didn't listen to him. It wasn't me alone, it was also other friends that was. I had two friends who I grew with, like in the same age bracket. One of them was older. In the same age bracket, based upon the age that they said I was. and it was the four of us partying together, and I wasn't listening to him because I was saying to myself he wasn't even there much telling me or guiding me on what to do, so I didn't even was listening to him, and was one evening I came in and he was sitting in the settee and he said to me, "I didn't tell you to stop par with so and so." I didn't answer him. He said, "I know you may talk to." I didn't answer. He grabbed me up and I grabbed him back and flung him down in the settee and we started to wrestle. And somehow I was over him and I held him down and he bit me on my hand and I jogged away and pulled away from him, and he went for a cutlass, a bill. He was going to take up a bill to chop me or do whatever I was about to do. And he wasn't my grandfather, he was just the spouse of my grandmother. Stopped him and he said to me that day, "You can go to your mama now, you can go and run your mama now." And I did, and so from there on I was run by my self-proclaimed mother, and that was where it took a bad turn, where, as I told you, she was always taking from me. She got money from her brother to give me to go to school. She gave me whatever she wanted to, which couldn't even bring me through for the week, and I just said to myself, you know what, I will stop going to school. It makes no sense. I stopped. It was my last year. I had to finish up Clarendon College and I stopped because of that. And I was there where she was, and it was always me in argument with her, always in argument back and forth, and so I planned and I left from where she was and was at a friend, and I think it was something they were keeping at my grandma. It was like a painting up of her tomb and so forth, and I went, and the self-proclaimed father saw me and he said, "Well, he's my father and and I should come and look for him and that was how he catfished me in, because I cut him off completely. I didn't deal with him, I stepped past him like I didn't even know him. In those times, it was for a good while too. And I visited him a few times and we spoke and all those things. It was those times that we really started to speak and all those things, like having conversations where he wouldn't be aggressive or anything. But he always dealt with me with aggression in many other ways. So it was one of his nephews who came for me, and I was staying with that nephew, and I used to go to bush with him, but he wasn't paying me anything, little and nothing, so I stopped. That was always his problem though. He didn't really want to give me anything because he was saying I was lazy. I didn't want to go to bush with him and all these things, but at the end of the day he didn't want to pay, so I didn't go to bush with him and all these things. And I remember also when I left from that cousin of mine, which was his nephew, I started to go to a hard school, and when I went for the first week and came back, that cousin locked me out of the house knowing that I was coming back, and so therefore I had to go to his place, the self-proclaimed father. And that was where I started to live with him again. And it was in the time of COVID where I was going to Ebony Park. Before COVID, I was going to Ebony Park, and when I was almost finished also, COVID came in and I was boarding down there and I had to come back home. And I had to come back home, and I didn't. It was online that they were doing the work, and I didn't have like internet and all those stuff. Internet wasn't in that community. I don't know if internet is there now. Or yes, internet is there now, but not everyone have it. A few persons. So at that time internet wasn't there, and I didn't have service or so that I could keep up with the online classes, so I stopped going to that. But it was always them working behind the scenes to have me stop. They didn't want me to complete anything because, as I mentioned in previous video, I was going to heart once more, and I didn't complete either because of their doings. So they didn't want me to complete anything in life. They didn't want me to achieve anything in life by working behind the scenes. So I stopped going to heart, and I was around him for a while, and he used to look over shit like hardly giving me food and all these things. Like he would have me starving and all these things until he would like cook him in the morning, and was way in the night before he cooked. Sometimes he didn't cook. He would be giving me chai food and all these things, and very and it was also my money that he was using. Most of the money, not most of the money that he was using was my money. He was always being breadcrumbing me from I was a toddler coming up with my money. Yes, and I remember I was there, and because I didn't want to go to bush with him, he said I could leave. He said I should leave once more, and I left. Now, I didn't want to go to the self-proclaimed mother, so I went to a friend which was also connected to them and everybody in the family. And it was them. My life was like a movie. Every scene of my life, they were behind the scenes working. Every scene of my life, everything that transpired, they had something to do with it. They were always watching me and planning behind the scenes and how they would deal with me and all these stuff, because they knew who I would become or what I should and must and will become. So they were trying to work against me not becoming that person. Let's not forget, they wanted to unalive me, but they could not, so they figured they would have me not becoming the person that I should be. So they did all these stuff to try and stop me from becoming who I should be. So I just want to give thanks and praises unto the Most High, my ancestors, because if it hasn't been for them, I wouldn't have been here. And they have been poisoning food given to me for a very long time. And y'all need to understand that when I say poisoning, it doesn't mean that it has to be it's some kind of, I don't know what kind of poison it is, but it's some kind of poison that is not really traceable. It's some kind of poison that kills you slowly, like it deteriorates your internal organs. Because I remember I had instance where I would eat and it was like after I eat I was feeling uneasy and feeling like I wanted to throw up countless of times, and it wasn't until I got awakened and started to understand things of the spiritual world, where I came to the realization that those were attacks and those were poisonings. And yeah, that's it. There's a lot more that they did. As I said, they did a lot of covert shit behind the scenes trying to unalive me. But here I am. Give thanks and praises unto the Most High and the ancestors.